Rafah, your problems answered. I have a letter today here from Marie saying, and the heading here is, my relationship with my mother is toxic. My father died suddenly when I was 13 and my family completely fell apart. My elder brother is autistic and my mother just couldn't cope at all. She got married exactly a year later, which was the most traumatic experience of my life. Her new husband was abusive and I had only met him a few times before he had come to live with us. My mother changed and didn't seem to care about my feelings, and I was told by her and the rest of my family that I was selfish and I had to take care of her. I wasn't allowed to talk about my feelings or cry or reminisce about my dad. My mum's new husband abused her and eventually the police came and took him away. I never saw him again, and my mother became an alcoholic and ended up living with my grandparents. And I lived on my own from the age of 17. I later moved abroad to work in an orphanage, and I came home, bought myself a flat and met my partner. I am now 21 and still miss my dad so much. I have a toxic relationship with my mum because she refuses to admit she has never done anything wrong. And I spend every day distracting myself so that I don't get upset. But on my own and with my boyfriend, I go to pieces. He doesn't understand and no one does, and I cry every day. Now I have to say, Marie, your letter really makes me feel quite sad, and it's invoking quite an emotion in me. I just feel so desperately saddened by your life experience already, and I know that you're probably not alone. And sometimes it really breaks my heart to know that some young folk like yourself really go through such challenging times from a very young age, and I can't imagine what you are carrying in yourself. And well, I can and I can't. I mean, obviously I can't imagine the experience, okay, but you do and are carrying a lot, and there is quite a lot here, so I'm wanting to break this down for yourself and for any viewers who might actually relate to this problem. Okay, so first thing first, okay, the biggest thing I find is the fact that you lost your father at the age of 13. Okay, now that would have been a really big thing. You would have been very much a vulnerable and emotional age as it is, okay? You have been going through your childhood, definitely into your kind of early teenage years. So physically and emotionally, you would have been going through a change yourself, and to lose a father figure, and as you put it, your wonderful father, so clearly you had a very good relationship with him, had died very suddenly. You also mentioned that you were unable to really process your emotions around the death of your father. Probably very much related to the fact that your mother got remarried too soon in my view, a year later, okay? The other thing you had to contend with is the fact that your older brother was autistic, which informs me, of course, that your mother also would have had a lot to deal with there. And you also say that she couldn't cope at all. So I'm assuming that she couldn't cope with your brother's illness. And autism is a very tricky issue, and especially not having a partner or father figure, really. And you've got to remember, your mother would have been devastated in herself also for losing your father. Okay, that is one thing you don't actually mention, and it's okay, all right. But your mother clearly wasn't able to cope with the loss of her husband and the situation that she got left with, which was yourself and your brother. You say she's got married a year later, which I already mentioned, but I do think that was way too soon, and she wouldn't even I don't think she even had her. That's the thing with your mother, and as I say, she's taken up drinking. But she wouldn't have had a chance to really process the loss, as well as being left behind. There would have been a lot of anger, bitterness, and all kinds of emotions that she would have had to look at and deal with, which she didn't, or even go through, that she probably didn't allow herself or couldn't. All right, and for you, going back to you, it was a very traumatic experience of my life. all right? And I'm for sure it would have been partly because, of course, you felt that your father was being replaced very soon with your mother. You were not able to deal with the loss of your father and the emotions around it, so you would have seen as a complete betrayal for your father not being there, and a new husband, a new father figure being in the home. Now the sad thing and the worst possible thing as well was he was abusive. Okay, so your mother actually brings somebody who was not really there for you in any way. You do mention that your mother has changed, and of course that does not surprise me, because she would have been under the spell of the abuse, hadn't dealt with any of her mourning or grieving emotions, or would have been carrying that throughout the whole process of having remarried to an abusive man, and therefore that would have been completely intermingled in her relationship with him as well as herself. And so therefore when you say she doesn't seem to care about my feelings, Maria, I don't think she even had the capacity to be able to care for your feelings. And I really don't believe for a minute that she didn't care for your feelings, but she was so unable to take care of her own self and her own feelings that unfortunately does ripple down to you and your experience of your mother. Okay, now the sad thing is here, I was told by her and the rest of my family that I was selfish and had to take care of her. So you were 13 at the time, maybe going on 14 by then. Yeah, in fact 13, 14, even 15, okay, but you were way too young still, and like I said, you didn't have a chance to even grieve properly, and you were blamed for being selfish, no doubt for speaking up, okay, and having to take care of her. Now you were too young, and and children, whether it's a boy or a girl, a young man, a young woman, having to take care of not only your siblings actually, but your parents. That is a big ask, and unfortunately it causes a lot of problems later on in your life, which is what I'll come to, which concerns me most. I mean, you are 21 now, but that will have major repercussions on when you are having to take the responsibility of an adult as a child, and that would make you overly responsible, and also emotionally yeah, you just didn't have really to have any chance to really formulate your natural formative years of emotional development as you were growing up, because you would have had to grow up very quickly. Okay, the really sad thing here was you weren't allowed to talk about your feelings, and that is quite common with a lot of youngsters, unfortunately. But you didn't have a therapist, or you didn't have a counselor, or you weren't even given any support whatsoever clearly about not only the loss of your father, but also what you were going and enduring through with your mother. So now here it says, I cry and reminisce about my dad. Okay, and you even end your letter by saying, I cry every day. You have got a whole vessel of yourself that is not only crying out in emotional pain, but clearly you can't even contain the emotional pain because you're clearly crying. And that's what happens when we bury our emotions, when we don't grieve our difficulties in early life, or we're not given a chance to speak up or to actually have our feelings honored. There's a lot of blocked emotions. Now the great thing is you are really aware of where you're at. You're 21, and as you go to pieces, I know that your boyfriend says that he can't understand it, and my main concern is he might not be able to handle it as well. You don't say how old he is, and you also tell me that nobody does seem to understand. Now my first recommendation really for you is to go and see Relate, or go and see a counsellor, or go and see a doctor, your GP, and ask to have yourself in to see a counsellor. That's really important. I mean, that's just bottom dollar. The first thing you do, okay, you need to be supported, you need to be held in a space, and you need to be able to express your thoughts and your feelings, okay, because if you don't, it is going to fester into addictions and negative habits, and more importantly, you're just going to feel so depressed the more you keep it in. Now the sad thing, also another thing I want to mention, this letter's quite long and it's got lots of points, is that your mother ended up living with your grandparents, so you were abandoned as well at the age of 17. Now 17 in some cultures is really regarded as, kind of old enough, for, I mean, you're not old enough to drink, but you're old enough to get some work, and you're old enough to leave home, or kids have been thrown out of one's home because they seem to be old enough. It's kind of like the kind of pre-college age where you've done a certain amount of schooling, and then from there you can just either work or leave if your home life is not very happy. Now, unfortunately, despite the fact you are sort of in the second half of your teenage years, one is still quite young. We think we know it a lot, or we talk to our parents that we seem to know a lot, but in fact we're still very young and very underdeveloped in many ways, not of course as a child, but nevertheless still very vulnerable. And in your case you would have been extremely vulnerable when you had to go and live on your own. You then somehow moved abroad and worked in an orphanage, which is also really beautiful. And interestingly, you worked in an orphanage because you somehow were an orphan yourself. Anyhow, you do come back home, you bought yourself a flat and you met your partner. So there was a big initiation into something positive. Okay, so you returned, you did a stint abroad and you would have learned about yourself a bit there. And you bought a flat, which is amazing to do that at your age, and also met your partner. You say you're now 21, which I consider still really young. And you missed your dad so much. So I'm sure you really do. And you really need to process this. You don't say in any way how you have been managing your processing, like journaling. Do you actually write anything? So I really recommend, that's the other thing, you start a daily practice, that you get yourself a really beautiful notebook or any notebook and start scribbling, okay? No, you don't bar your thoughts, you don't bar your anger, you don't bar anything, you just start writing, okay? You might come to a blank canvas or a page and you just think, oh my God, I don't know what to say. You just start. Just with that, just start with saying, I don't know what to say, or start talking about why you feel your mother's toxic. And she is, unfortunately, with having been drinking, ended up an alcoholic. Okay, now your mother couldn't cope, and that's what people do. People turn to drink when they can't cope with life, and it becomes the norm. And in her case, it's become something that she's relied on. Now, sadly, as it may seem, and as much as you may want to bridge things with your mother, I would say I would put that on hold. Okay, that is definitely part of your healing process, and for you to possibly and one day get back with your mom and in touch with your mom. Okay, but I personally really feel right now, Marie, that you really, and anybody else in this situation, you've got to take care of you first. Okay, it's like getting the oxygen mask on a plane, and you really need to take care of you. Give yourself the sustenance and the healing that you're going to need, because you certainly are going to need it. So if possible, just park the situation with your mother. Okay, now I know you feel a lot of anger and some absolute betrayal for your mom not even able to admit the pain that she's put you through and unable to even apologize, and that also bears another sort of sword in your heart, if you like, for the fact that your mother's incapable of doing that. And that happens a lot. Okay, your mom was clearly, you don't say what age she was, but she, and a lot of parents who unfortunately were never able to really do the mothering very well, are unable to admit to their faults. She might do much later on in life because they seem to change quite a bit, but right now she can't do that. And also you wanting that badly and expecting that of her is going to actually really hurt you more in the long term. So I would really suggest that you just park the idea of mending things with your mother and mend things in your own heart to begin with. Okay, and I spend every day distracting myself so that I don't get upset. Okay, now I'm not quite sure what you mean by your distractions, but do be careful, Marie, and anybody else, that your distractions are not going to be what's that word, things that destruct you. All right, so make sure that you don't lean towards drugs, or maybe a distraction is watching too much TV, but that is a form of addiction as well. Okay, and it's totally understandable, but all you're doing is you're numbing things out, and of course alcohol's another way. So we will have to park the issue that I have a toxic relationship with my mother because I desperately want her to apologize, but she refuses to admit that she's done anything wrong. You're just going to have to live with that for the time being. Okay, one thing I will recommend is on a Facebook, there's a Facebook page called Healing the Mother Wound, free community with Bethany Webster. Now Bethany Webster has written a book and has done courses and has laid out the sort of the template for a healing modality for thousands of women like you who has been abandoned and neglected and raised really badly, in the sense that didn't have the mothering, the loving mothering that they could have done in their youth and in their childhood. Okay, it is a free community page. It is a private group. I will put the link that said below here as well, so yourself, Marie, or anybody else can actually have a page where you can be supported. Now there, if you go on that page, you'll find that there's lots and lots of support that will at least the support will be that you know that you're not on your own. Okay, and that's really, really important. Now, the other thing I want to sort of discuss is the fact that you have a system right now, okay, a physical system and an energetic system that is very much wounded, as we know, and corrupted as well in some way, and been affected, all right, and very imbalanced. Now, for those who've been following me on this, you know that I actually work with a chakra system, and this is going to be some tools that all of you can use and take away and have and strengthen your core with. Okay, this does take regular practice. This is not something you do once or twice and you think it's going to be sorted. And unfortunately, in your case as well, Marie, and anybody who's gone through some life path like this and a soul path, firstly, I know it might sound hard to get it, but know that it is happened to you for a reason that you may not be able to see right now, but this is serving your soul growth and the growth that you've signed up to. Okay, I know you might not want to hear this, but the other thing is also you have got the skill sets and the tools, which I'm going to give you, that is going to help you become emotionally and spiritually stronger to be able to actually really be able to rid yourself of this pain. Now, with practice and dedication, right, and vigilance on your part, you will be amazed how much you can really improve. And I really recommend this method, which I'm about to talk about, and seeing a therapist to be a combined method. Okay, now of course anybody can book a session with me as well, and my links are below and the details are below, and I will also help you. I do a program called You Matter, and we will cover some of these aspects, particularly when you've been raised by a toxic mother. Okay, now I'm also familiar with this sort of parenting, if you like. I didn't have a particularly great childhood in many ways, certainly not emotionally, and my work is very much about owning my power and educate people to own your power, because that has been my life lesson and something I can now teach and share, and I do so. So coming back to the chakras, okay, the first chakra that will be really affected here is your actual tribal one, which is the root chakra, as the words describe. It's the root. This is where your fundamental upbringing would have taken root in your mind. Now, right from the outset, you felt that you weren't supported, you weren't felt you were loved, and you were having to live around very toxic and very wrong upbringing, and made to feel that you were responsible for your mother. Okay, and that is not the case. Okay, now the root chakra develops from a very, very young age, but despite the fact that this really happened at the age of 13, this would definitely have worked and affected your chakra system. Okay, the danger is this could also build up some addictions for you, and a sense of, this is where your physical, family and your group safety and your security was really rocked, okay, and not been provided for. You know, and the ability for you to not be able to stand up for yourself, or despite the fact you did try to stand up for yourself, was negated and you know, kind of not heard or, you know, accepted. This is also abandonment issues. So you are going to have, and I won't be surprised if you're playing out any abandonment issues with your partner as well, because you've already been left once, first by your dad, and then second by your other family. You would either attract somebody who's not going to commit themselves to you, or you're going to be so afraid that someone's going to leave you, so you could be very clingy and very needy. Okay, so your root chakra is going to need healing. The next chakra I'm going to skip to is your heart chakra. Okay, now because this is where a lot of the grieving is happening here. Okay, this is to do with grief, right, and sorrow and forgiveness, all these elements. Okay, now you're going to have to find it in your heart, and you will, maybe not straight away, but you've got to be able to forgive your mother, okay, for what she's done, for what she's not done, and what she's put you through. All right, but you've got to also understand that she was only able to do what she was able to do. Okay, and that's where you're going to have to get to that point. But to get to that point, you're going to have to really call her out on it. Since she's not going to speak to you, maybe it doesn't sound like she is, and she's not maybe wanting to speak to you. And if that's the case, or for any parent, but any person who's got a parent who's not going to admit to what happened, not willing to listen to it and stuff, you're going to have to get into some kind of therapy where you get to enact it out. Okay, and obviously I do that as well in the sessions, but this really helps, where you get to really voice what you want to say, and unfortunately you're going to have to do it that way, or even visually in your mind. But these are techniques that you are best supported in. All right, so your heart definitely is going to need mending, okay, and you're going to have to really give yourself the healing to do that, because I'm sure you've got an issue with commitment. Again, not commitment yourself, but possibly pull people in who are not going to be as fully committed. Fears of loneliness is one. Anger, bitterness, love, hatred, all of that would have been tainted. All right, I mean, you're only 21, but if you start working on this now, you are going to transform yourself and your life. So I really recommend the heart chakra to be healing. Okay, you've got some really blocked emotional memories, and this is why you're crying so much. And I really feel for you, Marie. This must be so difficult, and what a challenge to be going through. And for the fact that you've written in, it's really brave and courageous, and this is a first step for you to reach out. So this is really commendable, and well done you for doing that, okay? Because I believe in, you know, you've probably got to a point that you don't know who to turn to, but you've done the right thing to reach out, okay, and ask for this counsel and guidance. So it's really important. What's also happening is, because you haven't done the forgiveness, which is completely understand, you're letting your emotions and your hurt from your mother control your feelings towards her, as well as your life. Okay, you're kind of really insistent that she's gonna, you want to be able to not forgive her, but want to hear it from her that she needs to apologize. You've got to be prepared that she may not actually apologize or be able to apologize. Okay, there's quite a lot here. The other one I feel that in some way that's quite important here is your solar plexus. Okay, you feel very powerless, quite rightly. All right, but there is something within the powerless that you have power. If you can admit to yourself that, okay, right now I can't change my mother, I can't change the way I feel, you are able to then take control, which you did by writing into me, by taking charge and starting to write. So this is about you tapping into your power a little bit here. Okay, now you've shown me capacity for being powerful, because not only did you travel, which is really a very powerful and brave thing to do, you bought a flat, which is also an act of power, and also you've met your partner. Now you don't mention anything really about the love towards your partner, but I'm sure he's kind of like a companion, as well as a secure, somebody you feel secure with or need that security, which is also very understandable. Okay, but the danger is if he doesn't support you because he doesn't understand you're upset, and he's not going to. All right, Marie, he's just not going to, because he hasn't gone through what you have gone through. You're going to have to be okay with that difference as well, because if you make him wrong for not being able to kind of really fully get it, you're going to also push the very person who's there for you. So it's a very delicate balance. Okay, the next chakra I want to talk about, and the final chakra really, is, I only do generally 4 on these, is here, your sacral chakra. Okay, this is all your relationships. So this is where you have, again, feel a strong sense of betrayal from the family line, which is very related to the root chakra, where you have a loss of control, which you did. You know, you don't have any control about how your mother responds to you or not. You don't have any control about your partner responding to you or not. What else can I say? Also, you probably feel a sense of blame is big here as well. Okay, and you are going to be blaming your mother. You might even have some anger towards your dad that you're not even aware of, for him abandoning you and dying suddenly and leaving you in this shit, you know, that you feel that you've got to, or where you've come through, because you were so young. And I'm sure maybe you're even thinking to yourself that, well, if dad didn't die, none of this would have happened. There would have been a lot of anger as well for your mother, really badly choosing her a new husband who ended up being abusive. But I think she probably really realized that, and what it did do was change her way, and she was protecting herself, no doubt, felt such shame towards herself, and came across as not being able to cope, care for your feelings. Yeah, you know, so there is a lot there, and I really feel that you really need to get some help here. You know, I recommend also that you don't actually, if you decide that you are able to contact your mother and she responds, that make sure you're really able to discern that she's able to actually behave herself and not blame you for any of the things that happened, which she could do. If there's any residue of anger on her part, I mean, there's so many things could be there, right? There could be remorse on her part, and sadness, and she could be feeling really bad after all these years, or she could still be holding on to her anger and then blaming you. So be mindful, okay, maybe to go and meet her without any expectations, as well, and just see what shows up. But I really recommend that you have somebody who can be very supportive for you. Get yourself signed up into counselling if you can't afford any sessions. You know, again, depending on your finances, what have you, I do offer some, you know, sort of bracket of sessions that are for low income or anybody who's actually not in a position to pay for the full fee. So there is basically a bracket of payments that can be made. I really wish and hope I've covered the major points here, Marie. And for anybody, do let me know what happens. And for anybody, feel free to comment if you've got any sort of similar experiences or anything. And like I said, my first point of thing would be to work with your doctor and go and see, get a recommendation of a therapist. Work with those chakras as well. Really key for you to work with them. They'll help to strengthen them. I probably have a meditation to do with this as well, and I'll try and find it. But if you even work with these chakras individually, and how you work with these chakras is that you actually meditate on the colors through the system. Okay, there's a lot on YouTube that have a lot to do with the chakras. I do have some also pre-recorded, already recorded, and I do have one to do actually with in being involved with the toxic mother as well, and how you can strengthen your core, and the link will be that in the description box as well. I personally do the sounds, okay, and also my personal my YouTube chakra ones do the sounds, which really help to sort of vibrate, clear the block system, clear a blocked energy system, and all the wounds from the past, all the pain from the past can be released. Now this is a bit of a cleanup, so you might find that you might get yourself feel worse for a little while, but feel suddenly really better. Or feel really better and suddenly feel again not so great, but then it will actually it's a bit like having a dental treatment, you know, it sort of hurts but then it gets mends and you're fine. But you do need to do regular practice of this chakra to strengthen your root chakra where you feel, so you can start building up your own tribal law and abandoning all the past that has hurt you and has given you a foundation of fear, a foundation of insecurity and instability. Your second chakra to do with unions with other people and being able to feel brave, confident in the sense of powerlessness and knowing that you have a choice. This also very much relates to the powerhouse chakra here on the solar plexus. Very important that you keep your power and you hold on to your power, and you're not meant to, please do not hand over your power to other people, tell that you're wrong and you're overthinking things or you're paranoid. That's not true. And most important, you really got to mend your heart here. You know that, because in order to really love fully and not come from a needy kind of love or a love that is still grieving a lot, that's a lot of emotion to be carrying. And again, later on, if you don't deal with these emotions, it can come out as probably asthmatic if you're not already, some heart issues in the long term, or anything to do, or even breast cancer or anything like that. Often any grief or sorrow or lack of forgiveness that we hold on to tend to really eventually affect our body physiologically and just gets expressed in other ways. Hence my love and just great interest and educating people with the chakras as well, because I really believe it's the key to a lot of healing that normal therapy doesn't do, or psychotherapy of any kind like that. So it's a great blend of work that I offer, particularly with your inner child work or any kind of stuck levels of life development, and working together with the chakras really powerfully shift. So I'm going to end it here, and just thanks again. All the details are on the links below. Please do share this if you feel that somebody can really benefit from it. If you got something from it, do like it, and do subscribe, because whatever problems is for somebody, it can also be a problem that you can relate to. And to be honest, you know, there's a lot of problems that we all share. So feel free to, you know, sort of gain some knowledge, and to yourself as well to write in to Ask Rafah. Details again on the links below, directly onto my website with your problems, where I can answer it, and I can also not mention your name. So all the details are on my website. I wish you a great week. There'll be another Ask Rafah where your problems are answered, which will be uploaded next week. So once again, thanks for watching. I wish you all the best, Marie, and I really hope that you got something out of this. And you've done really well so far, you know, and I think you're an incredibly great, strong soul. Okay, I was just actually wrapping the Ask Rafah, so I don't know at what point it cut, but I'm just filming this straight up again. So I just want to say thanks for watching. All the details are below. I was saying to Marie as well that I'm really sorry that you've gone through all this, but I really, really believe that it's going to be serving you in some way, where you're going to do some amazing work, where you're going to bring all these skills and all these lessons that you've had to learn and undergo and shift your pain from and offer it to the world in some way. And it is often the case. So yeah, thanks for watching for everyone, and I will catch you next week. Bye for now. Bye. I got so carried away with giving the advice and doing the chakras that I forgot to do the brief tarot reading. So without further ado, while I was actually preparing for this recording, I actually was shuffling the cards to cleanse them, and some cards already fell out. So I'm going to be talking about those because I feel that the energy was already connecting and the cards really speak for itself. So there's a couple here that I have from my Osho Zen. Now the first thing that I want to bring up into the conversation is this Osho Zen inner voice card. Okay, now personally, for some reason I really felt this was your feminine, for your inner wisdom. Okay, so for anybody watching this as well as Marie, you've got to really start trusting yourself. I think you've managed to do that quite well, where you've actually gone and traveled, worked, you've chosen to work in an orphanage, and you've come back and bought a place, you've bought your security and stuff. But I feel in some way that this you need to really feel your feelings. Okay, so you've got to start listening to your inner voice. I feel like a lot of the tears that's coming out for you and feeling the crying is because you're actually trying to put a lid on your feelings. Okay, your inner voice is maybe speaking out in two factors. Obviously, you've reached out to by writing a letter and followed that, which is really good. So that's your intuition. So now maybe you can get some help and some guidance. The other inner voice I'm thinking of is that you are filled, absolutely filled with a lot of emotion, where it's now unable to sort of contain itself. I feel like as if there's like an ocean of emotion for you, and maybe even going to the coast where you can actually really sort of sit by the sea and just go on a retreat somewhere, maybe where you can actually be amongst very supportive people. Any groups you might want to Google that might be able to hold this space and help you release some of the emotions that you're carrying around your mother, and also the loss, of course, your father, because you've never really quite grieved. So maybe some kind of grieving group as well. I know it sounds quite heavy, but the point is there are such things, and I really hope in the future I'll be certainly hosting homestays for people with any of these sort of deeper issues, where you could come and stay and have yourself held in the space that is nurturing, and eat nourishing foods and be able to process some of the losses that you could be experiencing. But nevertheless, I really feel that you need to start. You might be getting some noise around, when I say some noise, some inspiration around some kind of joyful, playful things, and I think maybe you need to tap into that. Perhaps somehow that you've been so filled with a lot of grief that you've not allowed yourself to feel the joys of life. Okay, and I'm maybe thinking, well, how do you expect me to feel that? But I think you need to start doing that, because maybe the distraction that you're giving yourself is not the helpful distraction, but rather a depressing one. And maybe actually going out in nature and listening very closely to what will bring you joy, what you really want to do, and what you need to do will be the way forward. Okay, because I do feel like in some way, I can't help but feel like there's some way you've been connected to the very feminine aspect of yourself through this card. Now the second card that popped out, which also I really recommended, I really feel in your case this is something that you need to do. Okay, you need to join a like-minded group of individuals who have experienced and have gone through similar pain. Now again, the chakra colors here that I immediately pop out is the Root Chakra, the Sacral Chakra, and also the solar plexus. So I really recommend in some way that you participate also in this healing path for yourself, and to really engage in filling yourself up with healing of the root, the sacral, and the the solar plexus. Okay, I'm a big advocate for this, and I can't emphasize enough what a difference it can make on your healing journey. Now also with this card, for some reason my attention is going towards the heart chakra, and that's heart, yeah, and then the blue one there. So I feel like if you're going to be speaking to your mom, again, these things are really important that you actually work with them. All right, it's going to clear your voice box. It's going to have this sense of clarity, the sense of firmness, and holding your own is really important, because what happens is when we go back into an old family dynamic or a situation, unless we change ourselves, you're going to get, slip right back in. You know, if you see your grandparents, you happen to visit your mom and your grandparents, which I personally wouldn't recommend, but you know, there's so much old family dynamic that it is a very hard thing to break. Your heart definitely needs healing. Okay, my eyes are going towards the inner ring of this picture, and there's definitely green and vibrating green. So a heart chakra, or anything that's heartfelt for you and is going to bring you either joy or healing through your heart, I really recommend. You know, you might want to do some Tibetan bowl, you know, go and maybe see a Tibetan bowl healer where they can really sort of bring the sound of the heart chakra back into brightness and to some healing. So those are two cards that popped out. Another card that popped out actually from the surrender deck, which also I decided to take, was letting go of unhealthy relationship. I feel that the relationship with your mother is going to be one that's going to be quite arduous, to be honest, and difficult to heal based on your letter, okay? Because, well, certainly for the time being. And for the time being, I would even really recommend to let go. And this is also the card that confirms that, okay? It says here, let go of relationships that don't serve you, including unavailable or toxic people. Yep. So your mother's toxic, as you say. She's been inebriated, and she's angry, and she's never dealt with her emotions or loss, and she basically also makes it unavailable. She's unavailable to you because she's too wrapped up in her own stuff. And anybody who's too wrapped up in their own stuff is unavailable, by the way. Okay? And so it says here, which is so important, and this for anybody who's listening, you deserve to be treasured by others and to be surrounded by positive people. So this is another thing. You see, participate, get surrounded by people who are like-minded, who are positive, okay, and who are supportive. Now, you say that your partner doesn't quite understand. Don't get rid of him, unless he's also not really emotionally fulfilling you, all right? But you need to extend your horizons, or your group, and your parameters of where you're at home right now, and really join in with people who are able to get to yourself, to your feelings inside of you as well, and it could really support that. Okay, so whether it's a support group of some kind, or making new friends, might want to take the initiative if you like distracting yourself and you're a bit of a doer, from what I've seen. You might actually want to start your own Facebook group that supports people as well, and create a support network where people can express themselves. All right, but this is really what you need. I'm going to keep the reading as this is it, and I always do an extended reading with more cards, and let's see what the cards will say. But I feel like I've covered the basis here, and there's enough to go on with these 3 cards alone. Anybody who wants to see the extended version, there'll be a follow-up of this with the same title, and know that it's at Ask Rafah number 16, and you will find the bigger version or more advice from what the cards want to say. So until then, again, the link will be beneath this, because I tend to record them back to back, and you will find maybe some more advice that will help you through your relationship with your toxic mother or any toxic person in your life. Thanks, and sorry that I forgot to do this earlier on, so this will probably be sandwiched somewhere or right at the end. In fact, I might just stick to this at the end. Thanks for watching. This is the card reading, and yeah, it should have been really done in the main body of the earlier recording, but that's how it goes sometimes. I'll catch you next week. Bye for now. Bye.